Okay, so we are live on YouTube. We're live on Facebook. Thank you everyone for joining us for our final Talmud class in this series. It's class 6, even though we plan to do only 5 in the series, but Hashem helped us to fit in one more before Shavuot. So this is the final class, and in just a couple of days, we are celebrating Shavuot. So it's very exciting. I've chosen really interesting passages to conclude this section of the Talmud and Tractate Shabbat. With regards to Shavuot, I've been quite ambitious in preparing the class because I want to get through quite a bit of material, so hang in there with me. You have the link to the download source sheet in the comments in the description in YouTube or on the Facebook. Hope you've downloaded that. We have 3 passages we're going to study from tonight. The first one, it's from Shabbat 89a, and I've titled it A Confused Satan. Now, these titles are my titles, they're not the Talmud's titles, but it's a way for you to review and appreciate what exactly is the content of that passage. Let us begin right away. Source number 1. Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Rabbi Yeshua the son of Levi said, oh wow, Arya, that's beautiful. Okay, now I want you to go show mommy, okay?
I did.
Okay, so close the door now.
Oh, everyone.
Great. Thank you. Okay, sorry about that. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said, so last week we learned about when Moses went up Mount Sinai and all the angels made a big fuss. How dare you give the Torah to the humans? And Moshe debated against the angels and he won over them, and they conceded and they actually left him, sent him off from heaven to earth with many gifts. Now when Moshe finally descends and comes back down the mountain, Ba Satan, angel to God, V'amar lefanov, and tells God, Ribono shel olam, Master of the universe, Torah heichon hi, where's the Torah? Interesting. Seems like the Satan following the Torah, always aware of where the Torah is, enjoying the Torah, and then one morning he wakes up and the Torah is gone from the heavens. God, where is it? Amalai, God responds to him, Nesati la'aretz, I gave it to earth. Go look for it there. Halach Eitzel Eretz, he went to earth, he went to the land, to the earth. Amar La, and he asks the earth, Torah heichen hi, where's my Torah? Do you have it? Amar La, earth answers, Elikim Havin Darka. Only God knows its paths. I don't know where it is. Ask God. He knows. It's a quote from a verse. So earth doesn't know. So the Satan continues to search for the Torah. Halach Eitzel Yam, he goes to the sea. V'amar and he asks the sea, where is the Torah? So the sea answers, Eini madi, the Torah is not with me. You've come to the wrong address. Halach Eitzel Tahom. So he went to the Tahom. Tahom is a word for like the depth within the earth's surface. Amalai, and he asks the Tahom, where's the Torah? So the Tahom answers, Ein bi, it's not with me. I don't have it. Again, he got the wrong address. Shenemar, all of these responses, this didn't really happen. The earth didn't speak and the sea didn't speak, but it's metaphorical. And there's this verse from Eov, from the book of Job, that where these words are taken from. So the pasuk says, Tahom amali lo bi. The depth said, it's not within me. Biyom amar eini madi, and the sea said, it's not with me either. So that's where we take these phrases from and how we understand the reactions of the sea and the depth and the earth. Then the Satan continues on his search. He goes to look by Avadon, by places of destruction. And then Mavis, he goes to places of death. And he asks them, where is the Torah? Amru, they all respond, Baznenu shamana shima. We heard some kind of rumor, we heard something happening with our ears, but we don't really know where the Torah is. So the Satan has failed in his quest. He's looking for the Torah. God tells him it's on earth. He's visited every area, a category of existence in earth, and everyone says, I don't have it. So the Satan returns empty-handed to God, and he says, Ribono shel olam, Master of the universe, I've searched the entire land, and I have not managed to find it. God, where is it? Amaloi, so God tells him, Lech Eitzel ben Amram. Go to the son of Amram. Maybe you'll find it there. Who was Amram? Amram ben Nitzar ben Kahat ben Levi. Amram was a grandson, great-grandson from Levi, Levi being one of the sons of Yaakov. And who was Amram's famous son? Moshe. So go to Moshe. Interesting why God calls him Ben Amram, the son of Amram. There's an interesting commentary. Maybe we'll have a chance to talk about it. Go to Moses. Ask him about it. Halach etzel Moshe. So the Sultan comes back down and goes to Moshe. Amalei, and he asks Moshe, the Torah which God gave you, where is it? Amalei. Moshe tells the Satan, who do you think I am? Who am I that God should give me the Torah? Me? Why would you think I have it? Why would you think I'm deserving that God should give me the Torah? Of course I don't have it. God is listening to the conversation from heaven. So God interjects in the conversation and he tells Moshe, Moshe, Badoy ata. Moshe, are you a liar? Are you a fibber? What do you mean? Just a few days ago, I gave you the Torah. You were here in heaven. You had this whole debate with the angels. I gave it to you. What are you telling the Satan stories that you don't have the Torah? You're not worthy of receiving the Torah. You don't know where it is. Amar Lefanov, Moshe defends himself. And he tells God, Ribono shel olam, master of the universe, you have this precious secret, this precious gem, that you delight in this gem every single day. You think I'm worthy? Me, a simple human being, I'm worthy of saying that I'm in possession of this prized crown jewel that you, God, have, and you toy with and delight with and enjoy with and invest your whole being in, your wisdom, your Torah. I should have it. I'm being serious, he tells God. So God is very impressed actually by Moshe's response, by his defense. And God tells him, since you belittled yourself, since you humbled yourself, since you made yourself small and claimed that you were undeserving of receiving the Torah, I'm actually going to name the Torah after you. Shenemar, as we have in a verse in the book of Malachi, Zichru Torahs Moshe Avdi. God is cautioning the Jewish people in the name of the prophet, remember to keep and to observe the Torah of Moshe, my servant. The Torah is called the Torah of Moshe. Why is it called after Moshe? Not only because he receives it, more than that, because he tells God that he was undeserving. And he clearly meant it genuinely. God was very impressed by that. God is impressed by his humility. And so, that concludes this passage, which is a very interesting thing. What's going on? Why is the Satan searching for the Torah? A bigger question. What does it mean the Satan didn't know where the Torah was? Everyone knew where the Torah was. In fact, all the angels had this debate with Moshe. Was the Satan not there? And we learned that Moshe won the debate and he brought the Torah down here. Where was the Satan in the whole story? Everyone knew where the Torah was. There was Matan Torah. The whole world was aware of the giving of the Torah. It says that at the time of the giving of the Torah, everything froze as the divine presence of God came down on this world. All those who were sick were healed. All those who were deaf could start hearing. All those who were mute could start talking. Amazing miracles occurred at the giving of the Torah. There was thunder, there was lightning. The heavenly voice of God boomed in this world, boomed to the extent that the Jewish people couldn't even tolerate it, as we'll learn about later. Everyone knew about it. What was Satan saying? Where's the Torah? So there's two answers to this question. One is an answer offered by Tosfos. Tosfos is the commentary on the side of the page of the Talmud, a group of medieval scholars throughout Spain and Italy and France. And one of those commentaries writes that when God was giving the Torah on Mount Sinai, he wanted this production to go by perfectly, without any mistakes, without any disruptions. It's very difficult for any kind of production on that scale, especially, to go by so perfectly. There's always a glitch. There's always something last minute. There's always something that gets in the way. There's always a wire, a person, a light, a music track. something that didn't get organized. So you have to try to take care of all of your bases to plan such an event. So God wanted to plan this event completely that it should be uninterrupted. There was one person or one angel God had a lot of fear of. It was the Satan. This Satan has a lot of powers. The Satan is very jealous. The Satan always tries to get in the way of something good happening. God realized that this Satan may single-handedly disturb the entire production of the giving of the Torah. So before God comes down into this world onto Mount Sinai, God gives the Satan a little job to keep him preoccupied. He tells the Satan, go, I need you to take care of something. Satan is very excited when he can go and take care of something which is normally an act of evil or an act that is harmful. So God keeps him preoccupied and busy throughout the whole production. He actually missed their production. So he comes back the next day and he's looking for the Torah and he asks, where's the Torah? He was sincere. He did not hear about it because God kept him busy. That's one commentary. But here's another one that's really, really geschmack, really interesting. When the angels conceded to Moses and said, yes, the Torah belongs down in earth, at that time, they were under the impression that even though the Torah is being given to the earth, the Torah will still be shared with the angels. It's not leaving the heavens entirely and completely becoming possessed only by earthly beings, by humans, but it's also being taken down to earth. But the angels who have had the Torah, had their part in the Torah throughout all this time, still will have their share in the Torah. So based on that notion, which they understood at the time, they agreed, we're happy to share the Torah with the humans. We see how they too need the Torah, they too are deserving, as was explained last week. But when the Torah reached earth, the angels realized that the reality is very different. Actually, the Torah completely belongs to earth and earthly beings, and the Torah is completely out of the domain of angels. So much so that we say that in order to interpret Torah, in order to rule a law of Torah, it has to be processed through a human mind. Only a human being has the authority to interpret Torah and make a halacha, make a ruling of the Torah. And if a human being will receive a message from an angel or from heaven or from a heavenly voice about how to sway, how to interpret the law, the human being is instructed to ignore that voice. Torah lo bashamayim here. The principle became the Torah is no longer in the heavens. The Torah only belongs down on the earth, completely under the jurisdiction of human beings. And when the angels realized that, then they began to panic. And the Satan panics and says, Torah, what happened to the Torah? Where did it go? I thought we're going to be sharing this Torah. We're happy to share it with the humans, but they hijacked it. They stole the whole thing. We no longer have any authority, any say in the Torah anymore. That's what disturbed the Satan. This is a really powerful principle, and it's a very foundational principle that has many expressions in Torah law and Torah life. And it's somewhat counterintuitive almost, where a human needs to ignore the angels, the opinion of heavens, and completely process the Torah through the human mind, using, of course, the rules and premises built into the Torah that God created. There's one story I'll share with you that's in the Talmud that was a groundbreaking story expressing this point. A bit of context. This story happens within the century after the destruction of the temple. So after the destruction of the temple was destroyed, and Torah was almost being destroyed because the Torah centers were destroyed. One great rabbi, the leading rabbi of the time, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, he realizes that he has a big job ahead of him. He has to rebuild schools and Torah so that the teachers continue to teach and the students can learn, and will continue the story even though we're in exile, even though we no longer have our home state and our temple. So he goes to Yavne and he builds a new academy there, and slowly he starts to rebuild the Torah. He is the grand leader of the time. After a while, he realizes something very important. He can no longer be the leader, and he succeeds the leadership to Rabban Gamliel. Why? Rabban Gamliel from the tribe of David, and there were many, many generations of leaders that came from the house of Hillel because they had this right to leadership because of their lineage. And the majority of people were behind them. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai realizes that in order for the Torah to continue, in order to be able to establish a law, to discuss the dilemmas of the time, and to arrive at a decision that everyone can accept, you need the majority behind you. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was a profound leader who, there's many stories about him, that sacrifices and the ingenuity he had to lead the Jewish people, but he wasn't didn't necessarily have the majority backing behind him. And so he gave over the leadership selflessly, of his own volition, to Rabbi Gamliel. Now the leadership is back into the house, the family of Hillel, the house of King David. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai has a student whose name is Rabbi Eliezer, the son of Hyrcanus. Once, there was a great debate that emerged about the law of a particular oven. It was called Tanur Shel Achnai. It was an oven. As they built ovens in those days, they were made out of cement, out of sand, out of earth. They were built into the ground, but they were on top of the ground. And the question was, is this oven a piece of furniture, a vessel, or is it a piece of earth? And the difference would be that if it's a piece of furniture, a utility that can be portable, so to speak, it is susceptible to become impure if it comes in contact with something impure. But if it's a piece of earth, an extension of the earth is not susceptible to impurity. It doesn't have the laws of Tumah. So the question emerged about this oven: is it tamei or tahor, impure or pure? That was the question. Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus, listen to this story, it's unbelievable. Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus rules, it is tamei, it is impure. Rabbi Yeshua and all the other rabbis behind him say, we disagree with you. It's actually tahor, it's pure. Now Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus wasn't going to step down so easily, even though he was a single opinion. So he says, if I am right, let this carob tree prove it. Suddenly, a miracle from heaven, the carob tree was uprooted from its place and it shot away. The tree just flew into the air, which was a clear sign from heaven that Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus seems to be right. We're backing his opinion. Rabbi Yeshua stood there and he said, I'm unimpressed. So Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus said, okay, I'll do more. If I am right to see the stream of water flowing over here, it should start to flow backwards. It should flow upstream. Suddenly a miracle from heaven and the water stops and it shifts direction and it flows upstream. Rabbi Yeshua was standing there. All these people were not impressed. He said, Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus said, I'll prove it to you more. You'll see the heavens are behind me. God is behind me. If I am correct, let the walls of this study hall start to shake and come down. And suddenly, debris starts to fly everywhere. The walls start to shake. It's like an earthquake is happening. We beg him to stop. It's going to kill us all. And so the walls stop. And the Gemara actually says the walls did not straighten up in honor of the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus, but the walls didn't continue to break and to crumble in honor of the opinion of Rabbi Yeshua. So they stayed somewhat in the middle, like a leaning tower of Pisa. They were half broken, half fixed. But again, Rabbi Yeshua said, we're not impressed. We have a principle, Torah b'shamayim here, the Torah is not in the heavens. No matter how many signs heaven will send that you are correct, we don't agree with you. We're the majority opinion. We, throughout signs, have interpreted, examined it, and we feel that we're correct. So finally, a heavenly voice came from heaven to defend and to the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus. And the heavenly voice said, the law is that it's impure. That's how we rule in the heavens. To which Rabbi Yeshua and his colleagues answered, Ein mashgichin bebat kol. We don't pay attention to heavenly voices. We don't rule the law according to heavenly voices. God's opinion doesn't matter to us, so to speak. Angels' opinions don't matter to us. We were given the Torah. The Torah was being brought down to us. We have to rule the way we see the ruling, and we rule that it's pure. And then, no matter how many heavenly proofs, and no matter how many heavenly signs, and the heavenly voice, the ruling was in accordance with Rabbi Yeshua and his friends. So there we see the power of how the Torah is given to us, which is an unbelievable gift, but an amazing responsibility, especially those in leadership positions and those in positions to set down the law and interpret the Torah and adapt it to modern times and modern experiences and modern scenarios. Realize the power and the awesome responsibility we have, not to try to connect with dreams and connect with heavenly voices, and I heard in my dream like this or like that. We don't do that. We don't turn to the heavens for our answers in the Torah. We turn to our minds and the rules and the laws of how we're supposed to interpret Torah. This is what happened when Moses was given the Torah at Mount Sinai, which is a radical shift. We have to appreciate the extent of the idea, and this is what upset the Satan. Okay, I hope that's clear. We're going to move on to part 2. Actually, I want to make one more point over here. A couple more points, actually. You see, the Satan first goes to search for the Torah in the Aretz, in the earth. Then he goes to the Yam, the sea. Then he goes to the Tehom, the depth. You can see a pattern over here. He's actually going lower and lower and lower, so to speak. The Satan understands that the Torah is found in a place of lowliness, in a place of humility, right? So he goes to the earth, then the sea, then the depth, right? And when he goes to the depths of depths and he can't find the Torah, he says, well, it's not even here anymore. And God reminds him, you haven't gone to the lowliest space in the world. You haven't gone to the space that is most humble. Remember the son of Amram, remember Moshe. Go to Moshe. He's more humble than all of those things that you visited. He's more humble than any person in the world. And in fact, when he comes to Moses and says, where's the Torah? Moses responds with humility. Torah, how should I know? I'm not deserving of the Torah. And then God comes and accuses him of being a liar and playing a game. And Moses says, no, I'm not playing a game, I'm being serious. And here we have a very important principle. Oh, wow. Okay, I'm going to look at it soon. Let me just finish the class, okay? No, close the door, please, and ask Mommy. Close it properly. Well, yeah, okay, so you have to stay out of the room now. Thank you. Close the door properly, please. So, where was I? So Moses, it's very interesting. People confuse humility with sort of being false. You know, if you're talented at something and someone comes over to you and compliments you and praises you and wow, you're amazing. So if you respond and you say, nah, yeah, being serious, I'm not really that good. Nah, it's not true. You're not being humble. You're being a fool, a liar. You're not being honest. Humility is not dishonesty. Humility is absolute honesty. What's absolute honesty? We learned that from Moses. Moses was saying as follows. It's true I received the Torah. It's true I was handpicked, me and nobody else, to climb up Mount Sinai, to go to the heavens, to converse with God, to study with God, mouth to mouth, to talk with him, to debate the angels. I was given this whole mission. I was given the mission to take the Jews out of Egypt. I was given the mission to be the grand, iconic leader for Jewish history. It's true. Moshe says, it's not because of my own personal virtues that I worked for. I'm just a human being, like every other human being. Me on my own, I would never be capable of attaining such levels. The only reason why I'm capable of that is because of the gift of God. Like we learned last week, when Moses was up in the heavens afraid of the angels, God covered him, embraced him with the Shekhinah, with the presence, with the canopy of God's presence. Moses says, it's your gift to me. You could have given it to somebody else. You happen to have chosen to give it to me, which I'm very grateful about, and therefore I embrace it, I welcome it, and I'm running with this mission. But I'm not taking credit for myself. I'm recognizing where it came from. That is true honesty, and that is true humility. So the next time someone tells you, wow, you're such a great writer, you're such a great singer, you're such a great, any talent that you have, the real response is, thank you so much. I appreciate the compliment. I work hard on it. And I'm grateful to God for giving me this gift. Sorry. He could have given this gift to somebody else and they would have been the same. I happen to have been chosen with this gift. That is pure humility. And be careful, be wary of people who are very humble, claim to be very humble. Listen to their responses. You'll notice there's a fine line, but not such a fine line between humility and dishonesty. Be very careful, but the main thing is be careful about ourselves, how we appreciate it. All right, let's continue. Part number 2. Quote number 2. It's also from 89a. It's actually 89. Yes, it is. And I've titled it, Don't Be Fooled. We're on page 2 of the source sheet now. Since Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi gave the previous teaching, the Gemara is quoting another teaching in the name of Rabbi Yeshua, the son of Levi. Amar Rabbi Levi, this is very, very interesting. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi taught, My dersiv. What's the meaning of the verse that says, Vayara am ki voshesh Moshe? We know the story. Moshe goes up Mount Sinai. He's there for 40 days and 40 nights. He's supposed to come down. The Jews are waiting for him. However, the Jews saw that he was delayed. And this whole episode of the delay ended up in the worst of tragedies because they end up building the golden calf, worshiping the golden calf, and it's the breaking of the tablets. And from there is The rest is history. So the people saw ki boshesh. The word is boshesh. It's a strange word. Moshe was delayed. So Rabbi Shimon Levi says this strange word is more than just delayed. Al tikri boshesh. Don't just read it in its literal way. Boshesh meaning delayed. Ella, you could also play it and you could read it ba'o shesh. Boshesh could become ba'o shesh. Ba'o shesh means coming at the 6th hour. Shesh means the 6th hour. In other words, as follows. B'shash ala Moshe l'marim, when Moshe was about to go up the mountain to the heavens, Amalem Yisrael, he tells the Jewish people, L'sefer barim yoim b'tchilas sheish ani ba. I'm coming back down to you after 40 days at the 6th hour during midday. That's when I'm coming down to you. He was a very organized person. He knew the exact hour that he's going to be coming down. L'sefer barim yoim, now it's the 40 days are over. Ba Satan. Once again, the Satan arrives. Before the Satan was upset the Torah left, now there's even more trouble. Whenever the Satan comes, trouble is looming. The Satan comes, and he confuses the world. How does he confuse the world? So remember, they were given the time of midday. You'd only know midday if the sun is out. So he brings clouds, and he brings rain and storms and dark weather like it's been in my today or for the past week and a half. It's been dark and stormy. So he confuses the people. And then he turns to the people and he says, Moshe Rabchem, Eichon, where is Moses, your teacher, your Rebbe? So they respond, Alu Lamorim. What do you mean? Moshe went to heaven. He's there studying Torah with God. He's going to bring it down to us soon. So he tells them, Bo'shesh. But what do you mean? It's already the 6th hour of the day. It may not have been, or it wasn't, but he confused them. And he tells them it's already midday. You don't know because the sun's not shining. And he promised you he'll be here by then, and he's not back. He's trying to get them all agitated. But they didn't pay any attention. They weren't moved by what he told them. So he says more. By the way, did you know? Mace. Actually, Moses has died. I mean, no surprise. He went up for a 40-day trip on the mountain with no food and no water, right? And climbing mountains isn't that safe anyhow. We know, Chas v'shalom. I just heard a story of just the other day. Big mountain climbing. They get injured, they die. It's a scary thing. Be very careful when you climb these mountains. So he tells them Moshe died. Well, he's not surviving 40 days, 40 nights up a mountain. He's dead. They definitely didn't pay any attention to what he said. They didn't believe him at all. He promised them. They were devoted servants, subjects, students of Moses. He said he's coming, he's going to come. But then Satan takes it a step further. He shows them an image of his coffin, his deathbed. He did some kind of magic over here, and they saw the coffin of Moses. And now they take it seriously, and now they get all agitated and worked up, and now they say, "Oy vey gewalt, Moshe is not coming anymore." Behind it, the Carmel Aaron. This is why they turn to Aaron, his brother, and they say, Kizeh Moshe ish, this Moshe which took us out of Egypt and led us to Mount Sinai and gave us the Torah. He's gone. It's a tragedy. He died up there. He's not coming down. And the next decision is, so let's go build a replacement. Let's go build the golden calf. It was a very harsh move of the Satan. In a way, the Satan causes the whole thing of the golden calf. Are they to blame? The truth is their mistake went a little further. Their mistake was not just about the hours. Satan was not just confusing them about the hours, because for that they could say, well, it's not our fault. We didn't know that we thought it's already midday because of what the Satan told us. The weather was bad. They made an additional mistake and they weren't listening carefully to Moshe. Moshe said, I'm coming down after 40 days at the 6th hour. What is 40 days? 40 days is full 40 days, which means it includes days and nights and then days. That's a full Jewish day. Moses went up on the mountain in the morning. Just to give you a timeline, the 6th of Sivan is when God gives the Torah, right? And then the 7th of Sivan, the next day, this is the way most commentators explain it. First thing in the morning, Moses goes up, and before he goes up, he says, after 40 days, I'm coming down at the 6th hour. it would be a mistake to include that day, the 7th of Sivan, as one of the 40 days, because Moses went up in the morning, which means the night before was not part of that day. So the count should only begin from that night, from the next night, and then you can count a full 40 days. So if you do the math, if we don't count the first 7 days of Sivan, and Sivan had 30 days, so there's 23 days left in that month, and then 17 days in the next month of Tammuz, and that would reach 40. The 17th of Tammuz is when Moshe planned to come down, when he actually came down, but that's when he saw the golden calf that they built that morning. That's when they were worshiping. That's when he broke the tablets. That's why the 17th of Tammuz has become a fast day for us, because so many tragedies, including that one, happened on that day. But they did not listen properly. They thought 40 days, 40, 39.5. We can count the first day, the 7th of Sivan, even though there's no night beforehand. So they counted that day, which means their whole math was not just a couple hours off because of the Satan's fault. Their whole math was an entire day off. They were expecting Moses to come down on the 16th of Sivan, of Tammuz, not the 17th of Tammuz. And that's a mistake they made because they didn't listen. Now, I know that the Talmud talks about this seemingly fairy tale story. Satan is talking to the people. They're responding. We do believe you. We don't believe you. He's dead. He's not here. He shows them a coffin. We have to be careful when we analyze this text. It's not that there was like a verbal conversation between these two entities, the Satan and the Jewish people, like we have conversations with each other. No, that's not what happened, because if you say that, you're making it into an unbelievable story. Unbelievable, literally. You have to understand, when the Satan is talking and the Satan is telling them he might be dead, he might not be coming, it's a spiritual energy that is interfering with your life and planting a doubt in your mind. This is a very important concept. Whenever sometimes we have a certain shift of consciousness, it could be for the positive or for the negative. It could be sometimes something happened that we're feeling turned on, we're feeling inspired, we're feeling on a high, we're feeling really proud and positive about ourselves, we're feeling strong and motivated. Or it could be the opposite. We have doubt and we have suspicion and laziness and lack of hope and despondency. A lot of times, this may be our own personalities and this may be our own chemical structure at the time, and whether we ate or slept or whatever. But a lot of times it's a message, it's a energy that is coming down from heaven, from God, from an angel into you. Realize that, because it really helps us understand a lot of the things going on within ourselves and how to take them more seriously. The Talmud says elsewhere, every single day a heavenly voice is emitted into the world and says, "Woe is to those people who neglect my Torah." Every single day. So the Gemara asks, what's the point of this heavenly voice? Nobody hears it. So if nobody hears it, it's not going to make much of an impression. Just to say, I can sit in my room and bemoan what's going on out there, but if I don't go out there and speak to the people and nobody hears me, I'm not going to have any impact. What's the point of this heavenly voice is bemoaning the people who neglect God's Torah? So the Gemara answers, everyone does hear it. You don't hear it, the audible sound in your ear. It's not a physical sound. It's a heavenly voice. A heavenly voice is an energy. Like a sound wave is an energy. It's a wave. But the way it's designed is our ears is designed, and it can actually transform that wave into audible sound through our brains and our ears. Well, a heavenly voice works differently. It's a wave that enters into your soul, that enters into your psyche. And so somewhere within you, you are picking up that voice from heaven. And there's many other voices from heaven all the time. And so now we're not always so sensitive to that. We don't always hear that or pay attention to it, or we're hearing but we're not making much of it because we're thinking that it's not serious or real. Learn to pay more attention. When something is making you feel a little different, or it's giving you a boost, or heaven forbid, it's trying to, make you feel sluggish and down in a state of melancholy, realize these are voices that possibly are coming from heaven into your soul, and it's flowing within you. You're having a sensitive moment where you're really picking up on those waves that are going on. So utilize that moment and try to do something with it. That's what was happening with the Satan and the Jewish people. How is it that the Satan could have had so much power to completely change the attitude of the Jewish people so quickly? Here we have a people where they've just seen the hand of God taking them out of Egypt, bringing 10 plagues. They've just seen God provide a protective cloud, manna, food from heaven, water from the rock. They've seen God come down the mountain, Mount Sinai, and all kinds of miracles that happened there. They've seen Moses, who's been the agent of God throughout all of this. Moments later, after a brief discussion, a brief kind of conversation with their inner Satan who's planting doubts in their head, the next moment, they're building an idol and worshiping an idol and neglecting God and Moshe. How did that happen so quickly? Moreover, it's important to understand the psyche of a Yetzer Hara, a Satan. The Talmud says, it's actually a few pages later, the Satan is not so foolish to come to you and to say, tomorrow do something unimaginable that you never capable of doing in a negative way. Have any luck? It's very careful about something. Well, coming to you and saying, just forget about everything just forget about your reputation and all the work you put in life and the investment in your faith in the Torah, just turn around and throw it away. It's never going to work. The Satan is much cleverer than that. One day he tells you, you do it. Do the mitzvah. Do your normal thing. But with a little less excitement, a little less kavanah. It makes a gradual change, and he tells you that you're a little tired, you're a little hungry, you're not in the best of moods. Slight change, he's convinced you, okay, today I'm not going to put the same amount of effort in. Victory number 1, small victory. Day 2, victory number 2. It's going to be a little more. Remember yesterday you were tired and hungry and you weren't able to do this thing, or you couldn't do it with the right intention or with the same enthusiasm? You're really doing worse off today. And now, etc., etc. Day 3, day 4, it starts to grow. Right? If someone's on a very strict diet, if the Yetzer Hara is going to come and say, tomorrow you can eat whatever you want, all the fatty, unhealthy foods in the world, no one's going to listen to that. But if he says, everyone around the table is eating a dessert, you're not going to eat the dessert because you're on the diet. But, a little spoonful, it's not going to harm you. A little spoonful, you can be convinced. Today it's a spoonful. Tomorrow it's a larger spoonful. The next day it's another excuse why you couldn't keep to your regimen because you were running around. So it's another unhealthy snack. And all of a sudden, a month later, you look how much you were slipping and sliding, and you lost your way. That's how the Yetzer Hara works. Be very careful of the smallest of from what we should be doing, because sometimes it's the small victories of the Yetzer Hara that lead to the big one. Be very careful. How did the Yetzer Hara here all of a sudden transform the Jewish people from believers in God to idolaters the next moment? So this Rosh Yeshiva once explained something very powerful. He said, the Jewish people were students, devoted students, almost like children of Moses. Moses raised them, spiritually raised them, gave them their freedom. He was their leader. They turned to, they not idolized, I don't want to use that word, heaven forbid, but they adored, they admired. They didn't do anything without his guidance. He was their conduit. He was their connection with God. He presented the word of God to them. He was their everything. He was the head of them. The moment that Moses is gone, when you cut the head off, right, in an army, if you cut off the general, if you kill the person in charge, the commander, everyone's haywire. Because now everyone panics. There's chaos. There's no central order of command anymore. Everyone is in fear. If the head has been cut off, the rest will also be cut off. And so when Moses is gone, the Jewish people enter into a state of panic, complete panic. It shows how devoted they were to God, to Moses and to God. And now when with their essence, the map has been taken away, look how quickly they slip and they slide. For us in life to realize, in normal times, we can gain more control of ourselves. We have greater expectations of ourselves. But when things go haywire, for example, now, 2 months ago, everything went haywire. Everything just shut down. Our whole lives were changed. When we enter in a state of chaos and panic and organized, it's so easy to completely get caught up with things that are not ourselves and unbecoming and inappropriate. We lose our way very quickly. At moments when we're most tested is when we have to be most careful about not slipping and sliding and not giving into a potential impulse and urge and temptation and gaining our control over ourselves. And that was the test of people at the time, which unfortunately They didn't succeed in winning. So much more I want to tell you, but we're going to move to the last piece, and that is the last piece, a source of envy, text 3 on page 2. One of the rabbis, we don't have his name over here, asked a question to Rav Kahana. My Har Sinai. The Torah was given on Har Sinai. That's what we know about. Have you ever heard of why the mountain is called Har Sinai? What's the meaning of that word Sinai? Interesting question. Amalei Rav Kahana answers, Har Shenase Boy Nisim Li Yisrael. It's the mountain upon which many miracles occurred to the Jewish people. In Hebrew, a miracle is Nes, Sinai, I guess you could pull it, you could stretch it. So Sinai reminds us about the Nisim, the miracles. That was his response. What were the miracles? Many miracles occurred then. We mentioned some earlier. Another one. It says that when God spoke the 10 Commandments, the energy, the force of this divine heavenly voice was so powerful that humans in their bodies, in their lives, were unable to experience and absorb this heavenly voice, and so their souls expired from their bodies and they died. Because the soul delighted and connected with this spiritual heavenly voice, but the bodies couldn't contain it. It was an overflow. It was too much for them. So they all died. And then God sends angels with Tal Tchiyah, a special Jew that God will resurrect the dead with that, and it brings them all back alive. It's another miracle. They died, came back alive. The miracle is that which was normally seen was heard, and that which was heard was seen. So you normally see lightning, they heard the lightning. You normally hear thunder, they saw the thunder. The miracle is that all that were deaf, all that were ill became healed. The miracle is that no animals made any noise. Many miracles occurred over there. So Sinai refers to the Nisim, the miracles. That's Rav Kahana's first attempt. So this rabbi rejects that and says, Har Nisam. If you're right, it shouldn't be called Har Sinai. It should be called Har Nisa, Nisai, from the word Nisim, miracles. In other words, too much of a stretch. Okay, so he tries another response. Ella, he says, maybe it's because Har Shenasa Siman Toiv Li Yisrael. It's a mountain which gave a good omen, a good mazal, a good siman, a good sign for the Jewish people. Right? It's from this place where they become the Jewish people, they become God's children, they accept the Torah, they're given their mission in life. All of these blessings and omens for the people were given at this mountain. So, siman in Hebrew, the good omen, Sinai, siman, close enough, he thinks. So again, the rabbi says, no. Har Simanim, then don't call it Har Sinai. If you want to use the word siman, call it Har Simnai or Har Simnai, not Har Sinai. So we need a better interpretation, what the means. So Amalei, so the rabbi tells Rav Kahana, my taima le'shchichat kamed Rav Papa v'Rav Huna b'ed Rav Yeshua. I see you have not been attending the classes of Rav Papa and Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yeshua. D'ma'ayne ba'agadata. Their classes are filled with studying about the agadata, the agadaic homiletic teachings of the Torah, which apparently those teachings were not so widespread amongst all the Talmudists of the time. They all knew the legal teachings, but not all of them knew the homiletical, spiritual, agadaic teachings. And so here he's asking for an agadaic interpretation. What does Sinai mean? And he can't give a reasonable answer. He's telling him, why didn't you attend the classes of Rabbi Papa and Rav Huna who were teaching these things? I'll tell you what he said. The Rav Chisda, Rabbi Berei, Rav Huna, Darmit Havayhu, because I actually heard from Rav Chisda and from Rabbi, who said in the name of Rav Huna, he heard this in the classes of Rav Huna. My Har Sinai, what's the meaning of the word Har Sinai? Why is it called that name? Har Sheyarda Sina Lu'umas Ha'olam Alav. Sinai is very similar, much more similar to the word Sin'ah. And Sin'ah means hatred. And it's the mountain from which hatred from the idolaters was grown and sprouted to the Jewish people. In other words, it's the mountain upon which anti-Semitism began. You want to know why anti-Semitism? You want to know why somebody could hate the Jewish people? The answer is simple. Har Sinai. Sinai is Sinah, hatred, which is a very interesting thing, because everyone asks the question, what is the source of anti-Semitism? And books and studies and research and lectures. Why anti-Semitism? In the 21st century, in the 20th century, in the 16th century, in the 11th century, in the 5th century, every century, at all times. So you give one answer in one generation, but it doesn't explain the previous generation, or it doesn't explain 1,000 years ago. Yes, there are many manifestations in every single generation, but there's one simple answer. That's what the Gemara says. The simple answer is the Torah was given to the Jewish people in Har Sinai. The Jewish people received a Torah, which they committed to. It was a book of timeless, altruistic, moral values. It was a book upon which we would continue to live by that word, the heavenly word, for the rest of time. We never bent from that. Those values of peace and truth and honesty and fairness and loving kindness and equality and all of those things that we believe in, which for most of world history, every nation struggled with or ignored. Now, in the past few centuries, it's become a little more popular in the Western world and in the democratic societies, and they learned it from us, but we had it the whole time. But when we had it, then the other nations of the world did not like those values. They lived upon values of might and greed and power and those kinds of things. So they were jealous. They were envious. Because how do you live by life and not looking to seek your power, your greed, your might? Wow. It was something, when you have the goody-goody of the class who's always doing the right thing, listening to the teacher, doing well on the test, and everyone else is misbehaving and talking and throwing spitballs and failing. So it's that goody-goody in the class which is reflecting badly on everyone else. If he wouldn't be in the class, we would all be the same. Mediocre, lousy students, no one pays attention, no one does well in class, but no one's worse than the other. But when you have a measuring standard that this one person in the class is always doing the right thing and getting good results, he handedly is displaying negativity upon everyone else. That's the cause of anti-Semitism. It's our Torah, it's our values, it's our faith system. We have to always remember that. Just give me 5 more minutes and then I'm going to come to play with you. Okay? So you can sit in the bed or you can go outside. You're not going to see anybody. Want to say hi though? They're all watching you. Okay, 5 more minutes, Yodas, okay? Please don't disturb me. You can stay here or you can go outside. So that's the source for anti-Semitism. Now, it's really interesting that Har Sinai played a dual role at the same time. On the one hand, it was a cause of hatred, as we said. On the other hand, it was also a cause for peace. We're told, and when the Jewish people left Egypt, we think of this grand story, and it was a grand story, but 2 million people or so, they were a pack of Jews, like a pack of Jews are till today, and there were disagreements, and there were arguments, and they debated, and they didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things. And so every time they were traveling and they were camping, it was always full of arguments. But when they arrived at Har Sinai, at that mountain, there emerged a state of peace, a state of shalom, a state of unity among them that had never existed before. And one of the commentaries write, it's because they saw Har Sinai, meaning they were told they're going to come to a mountain where God's going to give the Torah. What were they imagining to themselves? This mountain must be the expression, the manifestation of this world. This mountain must be huge and impressive and glorious, like a Mount Everest, the tallest in the world. They were expecting something ginormous. They come to the desert. They see many impressive mountains around them, but Moses says, no, this one is going to be the mountain which God's going to give the Torah. This mountain was short, was humble, was a little unimpressive, and they realized the message that God is giving them, that if you want Torah, if you want to connect with Hashem, Hashem is not found in a place where you pick yourself up in a way that you are superior over others. That's not where you find God. You find God where you find a space to open yourself up to others, with them, and learn to empathize with them. So a state of being lowly and humble and honest is where you'll find God. And so when they realized that, they found space in their hearts for each other. So Har Sinai becomes simultaneously a value of peace, a cause of peace among the Jewish people, and a cause of hatred among the idolaters. And for the very same reason, if you promote humility as a value, some people are going to fall in love with that and learn to get along and enjoy some people are going to fight that and reject it as hard as they can. That's the story of our history. Last piece. This teaching echoes a similar teaching of Rabbi Yossi, the son of Chanina, who says, Chamisha Shemas Yeshloi, talking about the name of Sin, where the name comes from, and the name Sinai comes from Sinai, which means hatred. There's actually 5 names to Mount Sinai. What are the 5 names? And they each have a special reason and message in them. Name number 1 is Midbar Tzin. It's called Sin. Why Tzin? Shenitztavu Yisrael alav. Tzin, similar to the word tzivui, it's the place where the Jews receive their commands. They become commanded in the Torah. God gave them these mitzvot. So we called it Midbar Tzin, the desert, the mountain of Tzin. That's one name of Har Sinai. By the way, I want to say something interesting about this. We know that Jewish people were... Israel is asking a question. If God promotes the value of humility, then why give it on a mountain at all? Just give the Torah in a valley, really low space, right? Think about before, we said the angel of death, the Satan, went to the earth, and to the sea, then to the... You thought the lower you go, you're going to find the Torah. But in the end, the Torah is not in that low space of a depth. The Torah is in the space of a human being who is humble and honest, not low. Shiflus. There's a difference between shiflus and anava. Shiflus means when you have a low self-esteem, when you're feeling low about yourself, you're feeling crappy about yourself, you don't believe in yourself. That's a valley. That's not a true value. That's not honesty either. The mountain of Sinai tells us you have to have all the self-esteem. You have to have all the confidence in the world. You have to have all the faith in yourself in the world. But why do you have faith in yourself? Why are you such a worthy, deserving person? Not because you earned it, not because you created that self-worth, but because God gave you the self-worth. So the mountain tells us how firm and strong and proud you need to be. The low mountain, the Sinai mountain, tells us to recognize that it didn't come from you. You didn't create it, but God gave it to you. And that's the aspect of humility we learned from Moses earlier. It's really a very fine line, and many people, make a mistake with this, it's very hard to get this right. Many people err either on the side of being a shafel, a low self-esteem person, no belief in themselves, they have any self-worth, which is a terrible, terrible disease and condition, and many people suffer from that. Or the converse is many people suffer from this exaggerated sense of self with ego and arrogance, and that's incredibly unhealthy, dishonest, and a terrible disease. And by the way, the two sometimes go together, and so when you veer from the center, when you veer left and you veer right, you always end up at the same place. They too. So a bit of both going on by anybody that's off the center. The center is the Har Sinai, which is the perfect model that we need to aspire for. Not easy, but that's the message of Har Sinai. It's called Bar Tzin, so it's the place of commands. Listen very carefully. Who would you say is a more... they were not commanded? Just losing some reception here. Hope you hear me on the YouTube. Is it somebody who performs a mitzvah even though they're not commanded? Or is it someone who performs a mitzvah because they are commanded? It's a famous debate. Mitzvah v'oiseh, you're commanded and you do it, versus ein mitzvah v'oiseh, you're not commanded and you do it. Greater. We're not here. It's not our business who's greater, is not greater, but which is considered a more genuine, a more hardworking, more respectable effort that you receive more reward. It's a great debate. And in the end, I was having this conversation with my son in the car today. We were talking about it. I asked him this question. He said, of course, if you're not commanded and you do it, you are greater. Because if you're commanded and you do it, well, you have to. But if you don't have to and you still do it, well, that's really more commendable. Logically, he sounds right. There's the famous opinion expressed in the Talmud of Rabbi Chanina. Rabbi Chanina said, no. A person who is mitzvah v'oiseh, commanded and does a mitzvah, is greater than a person who is not commanded and does the mitzvah. We see it expressed in a story. It's the story of, what's his name? Of Dama ben Nesina. The Gemara talks about this Roman nobleman who lived in Israel in Ashkelon during the times of the temple, but he was a Roman, and his name was Dama ben Nesina. Why do we talk about him? Because we actually learn a lot of values from him. So the story goes when they were trying to build the choshen, the breastplate for the high priest in the temple. We know that it had 12 special gems. These were very unique, expensive gems. You couldn't really get them anywhere. But they heard that Dama ben Nasina's father, who must have been some kind of jeweler, he has one of the gems that they need. So they visited his house and they knocked on the door. The son answered the door. Dear Dama, we are the messengers from the temple in Jerusalem. We hear you have this special gemstone that we need. We want to purchase it. And we're offering a lot of money. Dama says, thank you, but my father's sleeping right now, so I can't wake him up. The keys are under his pillow, the keys to the chest. We'll offer you more money, they said. I'm sorry, he says, my father's sleeping, I can't wake him up to get the keys. They offered him an exorbitant amount of money, which they could have well for many generations. And this child says, I'm sorry, I just cannot disturb my father who's sleeping. Special child. So the sages walked away empty-handed. Later, when his father woke up, he took the gem and he ran after them and he gave it to them. They were willing to pay the highest price which they eventually offered, and he refused to take it. He says, give me the first price that you offered me. They said, but we're going to give you more. He said, how could I be and profit of doing what I want to do, which is honor my father? And from there we learn the extent to honor your parents. And the Gemara says, Dama ben Nasina did not have the Torah law, the Torah command to honor their parents. That's a command for a Jewish person, at least in its unique way. And if he observes the command that way, how much more so if a person who is commanded to honor their parents, they should certainly be honoring their parents in that way and receive greater reward. And Rabbi Chanina learns from that idea that a person who's commanded is actually rewarded in a greater way. We have a story of Rabbi Yossi, who was blind. One of the sages, Rabbi Yossi, was blind. There's an opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says that blind people are exempt from performing mitzvah. You know, he says it's too much to ask of them. The blind person has so many challenges in life. To make them obligated to do all the mitzvot, it's too difficult for them. So they're exempt from mitzvot. So Rabbi Yossi once said about himself, he was blind. He said, whoever can prove to me that the law is like Rabbi Yehuda, I'm going to throw a party. Because if the law is like Rabbi Yehuda, that a blind person is exempt from mitzvot, I'm blind and I still keep the mitzvot, that must mean reward for doing a mitzvah, even though I'm not commanded to, I'm going to throw a party. Later, he changed his mind. And he said, I realize, actually, that the mitzvah v'oisa, the person who's commanded, is greater than the eine mitzvah v'oisa, someone who's not commanded. Why is that? Why is the person doing what they must do held in greater esteem than the person doing something voluntarily? The answer is, it goes into the heart of human psyche. Whenever you have to do something, that's when the Yetzer Hara hits hard. If you don't have to, but you do it when you're in the mood, because you're in the mood, if you're in the mood, good. And if you're not in the mood, fine. You don't have to. So the Yetzer Hara is not so threatened. Fine, do it. But when you have to do something, the Yetzer Hara really wants to get in the way. And he pulls out every trick in his book to try to stop you. And you'll notice it in your life. You're happy to do things. You're happy to help. But you don't want to commit. You don't want, I'll help, but don't rely on me. Because if you rely on me, so I'm obligated and committed, that makes it all the more difficult for me. I don't want that kind of responsibility. I'd love to be able to just check in and check out when it's convenient for me. A mitzvah v'oisa is somebody who doesn't have the opportunity to check in and check out. They're commanded all the time. They have more of a challenge and more of a difficulty. So that's why it's considered greater. So even though we know Jews were doing mitzvot before the Torah was given, the patriarchs, the matriarchs were doing mitzvot, they had the mitzvah of Shabbos and other mitzvot before. But we say Har Sinai is called Midbar Tzin because then they were given the tzivui, then they were given the command of the performance of the mitzvot. That command to do the mitzvah then made the mitzvahs all the more challenging, and that's the reference of this name of Sinai. Let's learn the other four. Another name is Midbar Kadesh. Another name is the mountain in the desert of holiness, because because the Jews became sanctified on that mountain when the Torah was given. Another one, Midbar Kedemot. It's called Midbar Kedemot. What does the word Kedemot mean? Shenitnat Keduma Alav, because the primordial Torah was given on it. Remember, we learned last week that the Torah was given 1,000 years before the world was created. So the Torah precedes the world. So it's called Keduma. Keduma, that which preceded. Next, Midbar Paran, it's called the desert, the mountain of Paran. What's the hint in the word Paran? Sheparu v'rover Yisrael alav. The Jews greatly multiplied at that mountain. Here's an interesting story. We know that 3 days before the Torah was given, the Jews were commanded to separate from their spouses so that they should remain in a state of purity. Then God gave the Torah. After God left Mount Sinai, he gives Moses the command to tell the people, Shuvu lachem la'ahalechem. It's a nice way of saying it. Go back to your tents. Read between the lines, God was saying, husbands, wives, go back to your bedrooms, get to work. And so that night, or that period of time, we're told, many, many children, everybody conceived a child, so many children were born by that mountain. Finally, we have one more interpretation. Midbar Sinai, which is the one that we just expressed earlier. Why is it called Sinai? Sheyarda Sinai Lomat Olamah, because hatred became from the idolaters to the Jewish people as a result of this mountain and the Torah given on it. But the Gemara says these are 5 names given to the mountain because they're representative of different traits and values and experiences that happened. But what's its real name? What's the real name of the mountain? Not a code name that we give reflecting of an experience. So the Gemara says the real name is Chorev. Chorev means a sword. It's called Har Chorev. Actually, the first time the Torah references this mountain is Har Chorev by Moses, by the burning bush. The Torah interchanges between Chorev and Sinai all the time. So which one's the real name? So here it says Sinai is not the real name. Sinai is just a code name. The real name is Chorev. Opliga de Rabbi Bo, and this opinion argues the Rabbi Bo. Rabbi Bo says the other way around. Rabbi Bo, Har Sinai Shmor says actually its real name is Sinai. But Lamer Nika Har Chorev. Why does the Torah call it sometimes Har Chorev? Sheyarda Churba Lomas Amelav, because a destruction befell the idolaters as a result of this, because their way of life was punctured. The corruption of their faith, of their pagan beliefs was punctured, and it was a hole was blown into it, and it was destroyed when the truth was revealed. One God who came down to this world and gave the Torah to the Jewish people. One thing I'll conclude, why is the Torah called a sword? The Torah was given on the mountain of a sword. So the Kabbalists talk about this a lot, but briefly, we know that there's the written law and the oral tradition. The written law is mainly made up of the 5 books of Moses. The oral tradition is mainly made up of the 6 orders of the Mishnah. If you would normally categorize the 2 traditions, we have 5 books of Moses, 6 books of the Mishnah. In Hebrew, the 5 is a Hey, the letter Hey. You know the letter Hey? And in the 6 is the letter Vav, a straight line. If you could picture in your mind a Vav on top of a Hey, so the Hey is at the bottom and the Vav is on top of it, you actually have a picture of a sword. The Hey being the handle and the Vav being the blade. So in a way, the Vav and the Hey, which symbolize the 2 traditions of the Torah, is the sword. And when Yaakov says, I fought against Esau, b'charbi uvekashti, with my sword and with my bow, it doesn't only mean a military force, but the Zohar says it also refers to the qualities of Torah, of tefillah, of Torah study, and of prayer. Charbi, my sword is my Torah study, my prayer is my bow. Meaning, it's our spiritual efforts, it's our faith, it's our belief, it's our practices, it's our value system, which has been the greatest weapon of us throughout our history. That's why Torah is called a sword. And the Torah has the power to pierce through challenges, to pierce through obstacles, to pierce through difficulties. Sometimes you're feeling down and sluggish and something is going wrong and things are not working out. Do yourself the favor, really, take the 5, 10, 15 minutes and really study some Torah earnestly. Your whole life will be transformed. Your mind will be elevated. Your innards will be cleaned, will be cleansed. And then something will happen, whether it's going to be solved or not, or you're going to start to think clearer or be more elevated person or live higher. It'll change you completely. So, my friends, I want to thank you for joining me on this 6-part course behind the scenes at Sinai. And we have learned a lot from the few pages of the Talmud of Tractate Shabbat discussing the episodes of the Jews arriving at Sinai until they finally received the Torah. We have learned many stories, many traditions, many interpretations. We have become enlightened about so many things that occurred. And we didn't even touch the tip of the iceberg. There's still so much that is explained. But I want to thank you for a tremendous course. I've enjoyed teaching it and studying it and researching it very, very much. And please stay tuned because I'm going to be announcing the next course coming up after Shavuot, and I hope you will join me. But for now, I want to wish you a happy Shavuot. And the tradition is to tell each other, may you receive the Torah with joy and with integrity, with honesty. The greatest values are joy, happiness, and honesty and integrity. Those are the 2 traits that we try to receive the Torah with. And a teaching about Har Sinai, it was a mountain, but not such a tall mountain. I think one of the ideas is that it was tall enough to create very high expectations of us, but low enough to make those expectations truly attainable. Don't set a goal in your life that you're never going to ever live by. Those are for the angels, not for humans. Don't set your bar so low that you can just remain yourself in your comfortable space and never have to make any effort or work at all, because you'll never change, you'll never grow, you'll never be who you can be. You want to fulfill your fullest potential. You want to be all that God created you to be. That's a lifetime of work. Always set your standards high. Always challenge yourself, but within reason, that you can actually attain it, which is why you have to have a coach, a life coach, a spiritual mentor to help you on your path, what you can study, what you can do, how you can grow, how you can help others, how you can contribute to the community. These are all such important things. Feel free to review the classes. Enjoy your Shavuot wherever you'll be during this challenging time. God bless you and Chag Sameach.